Thank you so much, Amanda. First off, my name is Anna, and I will be trying to ask some good questions today and hand out the word. And if you have any questions, as Amanda said, please let us know, and we will take them as we go along. So what I do is basically that I am working with innovation in a small startup company that is called Hives, and we have an innovation platform that is called Hives. And my connection to this setting is basically that I have been the vice CEO of Chalmers Studentkår Promotion a long time ago. So I'm really excited to be back in this context. Björn, would you like to go next?
Certainly. Thank you so much, Anna. My name is Björn Westling, and I work as the Director for SME Relations at Johanneberg Science Park. We're a partly owned subsidiary of Chalmers and the city of Gothenburg. We also have about 15 industrial corporations as co-owners and stakeholders. Our mission is to embark on ambitious innovation projects for future sustainable society, particularly involving areas such as the built environment, energy, materials, fossil-free chemistry, and so on. We're 25 people working at the science park. Our premises, usually when there's not a pandemic going on, is on the south part of campus area in the two newly built buildings close to the sports ground, Mossen. And it's actually my third stint at Chalmers. I was educated here once, and then a few years after graduating, I returned and was part of the very young and pioneering innovation movement. At that time, there was a building called the House of Innovations, which was the fruit of a very forward-looking professor named Torkild Wallmark. He was sort of the pioneer of innovation at Chalmers. We were a few small startup companies in that building. And then I moved on to other small companies in the same kind of area. To once again return here to the campus area 8-9 years ago, and I wouldn't have thought that when I once graduated, but it's great to be here, really, and I love this opportunity to work with the university, with companies, with the city of Gothenburg, and with the Västergötland region. So yeah, that's perhaps a slightly too long introduction, but well, anyway.
Thank you so much, Björn. We're really excited to hearing about your thoughts connected to this area. And also your thoughts, Lars. Would you like to go next?
Yes, please. I'm Lars Bern, and I work for Business Region Gothenburg, which is the industry development agency with the municipality, with the city. And so we normally deal with companies that want to establish here. We deal with the companies, predominantly the small and medium-sized enterprises that want to develop their businesses. And I am connected to a department called Cluster and Innovation, and I am the area manager of innovation. So I work in the innovation field really on both on the high and low levels. So you would find me on a daily basis in everything really from the strategic programs for the city in terms of development, but also in EU projects and testbed developments with various companies. And we work very closely with the academia and the institutes as well. So we're, like Björn said, we're part owner in the science parks, both Johanneberg, Lindholmen, and Sahlgrenska. And so we very much are involved in the projects that they host as well, and the programs as well. I also have a background from Chalmers. So I was there from the mid-90s to the millennium shift, you could say, and I graduated from both the industrial engineering and management program, but also the School of Entrepreneurship. So my background is I've been in startups, various startups, a handful of those, but then I ended up in the energy utility in the city, Gothenburg Energy, and from there on I have been working also with Business Region Gothenburg since 9 years back. Thanks.
Thank you, Lars. Awesome. So let's continue with Elizabeth.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elisabeth Svensson, and I have worked as an entrepreneur and founder of a company and worked as CEO for quite many years now. And right now I'm working as Global Director for Strategy and Innovation at SKF. And I am very thrilled about the questions that I hope that we will get here today from all students. And if anybody has any innovation, then of course SKF is always welcoming new ideas.
Awesome. So maybe someone will contact you after this, Elizabeth.
That I hope. That is one of my hopes.
That sounds awesome. So let's embark on these amazing questions then. The first question that I would like to ask each of you is really, what is innovation for you and why is it important to your work and your context?
Do you want me to start, or who do you want to start?
Please start, Elizabeth.
Yep. I was actually having a discussion today about innovation because we need to innovate where we are, meaning that we need to work with constant improvements, continuous improvements on a daily basis, and just make things work more and more smooth. But then we also need to have a look at the North Star. Where is everything heading? And as you know, SKF is manufacturing bearings, and those are made today. That is more and more interesting because when you are reducing the amount of energy and you have to use solar energy or you have to use wind energy, and electrical cars are coming along, then the bearings and the energy friction that comes with the bearing is more and more important. So we both have to look at how we can improve the bearings we have today, but then we also have to look at innovative ideas, making us a compelling partner for our customers in the future. And that means that we need to reduce the oil, for instance, so that we can reuse the oil that is used. And also these big bearings that you see in windmills, for instance, those are very, very big. They're extremely large. And if they goes down, then it's very costly, both from the company perspective, but also for the environment to build a complete new one. So if you instead can repair it, then of course both the environment and the company who owns the bearing has gained a lot of money. And I was during the week I've been in discussions with primarily China because they have this huge leap they want to make their environment more sustainable. Also now when they have entered the industrial arena, so to speak. So they are really doing a lot of things to make the world more sustainable. And we, if we want to be on that market, we need to have compelling offers. So it's both kind of continuous improvements, small steps to make us better, and also these big leaps that you have to take, and also see, to notice where they are.
So if I understand you right, you do both like small steps, small improvements to make sure that you stay relevant now in the near future, and you do bigger projects that are maybe more radical and you try to find ways of staying relevant over longer time periods.
Exactly, you have it completely right.
That sounds awesome. So Lars, what do you have to say about this topic? What is innovation for you?
I would say in a very simple sort of sentence, I think that innovation is something novel that creates value, period, more or less. But from a more sort of complex perspective, I think innovation is like Elizabeth points out, it's ever necessary because we have so many challenges in terms of sustainability and so on, but also in terms of welfare. If you look at Sweden in general and Gothenburg in particular, we're very much an exporting region. So very much of our welfare system and the whole sort of everyday life that we enjoy are depending on innovation. So if we don't stay relevant in a global context, we will actually in the long run we will lose our welfare perspective that we do have enjoyed today.
Yeah. And what do you say, Björn, about this?
Well, what can I say after these two very well spoken? But basically, I think innovation has partly become a little bit of a misused term, because it's been used so much for so many things that there's a risk of the word of innovation losing its meaning. I would like to say what innovation isn't. Maybe that could be more enlightening. For instance, I would say product development as such, in my opinion, is not innovation. Inventions are not necessarily innovation. To move back to what Lars said, novel things that create value. I think that's a very good definition. But it doesn't necessarily have to be physical things. Innovation could just as well be innovation of a service, innovation of a method or a process. It could be a new way of thinking about your customers, the value that you provide to your customers, and how you could do this in a new way. So I believe when we look at innovations, we should try to be a little bit picky and not just say that every new thing is an innovation. We should see, are we actually creating value? And it needs not to be monetary value. It could also be societal value. Are we creating this value in a new way? It's not just an incremental improvement to what has been before, but is it new? And it needn't be new in the world. It could be new for our sector, our business, our region, and so on. And I'm not sure whether this answer has made you any wiser, but I think it goes to show that innovation is not such an easy thing to define. But I would like to see in the future innovation, the word innovation used a little bit more sparingly than it is today.
Thank you, Björn. So if I interpret all of you correctly, maybe what you're saying is that innovation is something that is new, but also something that creates value for someone. So if it's only new, maybe it's an invention, and if it's not new, it's not an innovation, basically. So if we take this into a Gothenburg context, then what do you see that Gothenburg does for participating in the innovation scene? How is Gothenburg as a city doing that? Would you like to start, Björn?
You mean the actual city of Gothenburg?
Or different initiatives within the city, basically.
Yeah, well, I think there's a huge potential in Gothenburg. I mean, we have the automotive sector, which is obviously a great source of innovation. We have the medical, the pharmaceutical companies that are also driving forces in innovation processes. And not least, or maybe perhaps foremost, I would say the innovation system around Chalmers is absolutely world class, and is something we should be really, really proud of that we have in Gothenburg. So I think there are all sorts of things that are looking very, very bright in the innovation scene in Gothenburg.
And what would you, Lars, say is the biggest challenges or biggest strengths that Gothenburg have connected to innovation?
I would connect that really to, if you look at the innovation of today, it's very much a systemic perspective. I mean, it's not only about creating a new car that's electric and self-driving and so on. It has to be put in a context, and you need not only technical innovation, but you need marketing and regulation innovation connected to that as well. And when I talk to people about Gothenburg, what strengths we do have is that one is we have resources in terms of a lot of research and development spending. We have the highest rate in Sweden actually right now. We even surpassed Stockholm now. So 1/3 of the private R&D is spent in Western Sweden. we also have people that are that's key really. If you don't have the bright people and the people that can bring these innovations to life, it wouldn't happen really. And the third thing that it's a very key strength with Gothenburg is collaboration, because you need, once again, when it comes to the systemic perspective, you need both the industry and the public sector and the academia and institutes to work together on this. Otherwise, it won't come together really. And but then also we need to lift ourselves. We're an industrial city, very much like Björn pointed out with the automotive industry and SKF, which is participating here as well, and others. But we need to bring in front. I mean, a lot of things are happening now where the supplying sector, the consultants and the services that are created by small and medium-sized enterprises and serving the big industries. I think we need to bring them up and show the sort of multitude of opportunities that there are there, because and we have the structure also in Sweden in general that there are too few really small and medium-sized enterprises, because those are the enterprises that are probably going to create the jobs of the future. So that's both the strengths and the challenges that we do have.
I see. But how about you, Elizabeth? How do you view this question?
I would like to actually repeat what Lars said, that you need to have money, and I am happy to hear that a third of the R&D private money are being spent in West Sweden. I'm very happy about that. And you need the people, and we have several universities here, so you do have competent people. And then I would like to mention and emphasize one more thing, and that is that we have large global companies with their headquarters in Gothenburg. Not many cities have that. Stockholm, of course, but not so many others. We have Volvo, who has headquarters here. We have SKF with headquarters here, and that is amazing for all entrepreneurs, because if you are an entrepreneur and you have a great idea, it's perhaps easy to actually sell within Gothenburg area. But if you have a great idea and want to expand it to be a global, you want to have a global market, then it's very expensive and hard work to accomplish that. But if you can sell your idea to SKF, to Volvo, to IKEA, to Ericsson, to a company who already are on the global market, then it's so much easier. So I would really like to emphasize the opportunity that these global big companies have, and to use that as an opportunity and see what that can bring to the small company. Because the disadvantage is, of course, that the big, large companies are eating all talent, that they are consuming so many resources that it's hard for the smaller companies to get any employees. But I think there's also a big advantage with the global large companies who have the headquarters here in Gothenburg.
I see. What do you say, Björn, about this?
I would like to comment what Elizabeth just said, because I think we have identified the same potential that you have. We're just launching a program now in the Science Park called Small Meet Large, or Liten möter stor in Swedish, which actually aims to bring small and large companies together for collaborative innovation processes in a sort of formalized process, which should be really interesting, I think, and really rewarding for both parties, both the large and the small.
Yes, go ahead, Lars.
I think also worth pointing out is that, I mean, all these large corporations, there's a trend that's been going on, and they realize that all things aren't invented and developed in-house, and not all things are developed by the suppliers or pulled from the customer needs and so on. So if you look back a few years now, you've seen a development where large players like AstraZeneca and Volvo and other automotive companies have opened up for open innovation. So at AstraZeneca, you would find, for example, the BioVenture Hub, where they're hosting a number of companies that are developing companies. They've come a bit on their journey to become big companies, but they're not really startups in that sense. But so there's like some 20 companies connected to the AstraZeneca site, and they have full access to the people and the resources there on a commercial basis, of course. So, but it's no strings attached, and you can see similar initiatives being done in the automotive industry, with, for example, with Mobility X Lab, where both the automotive companies, the OEMs, and their suppliers like Veoneer and Sensact they've teamed up with the Volvo companies, Sevst, one of the biggest startups, I would say, in Gothenburg. It's a sister company to Volvo Cars, for those who doesn't know that. But also Ericsson, and these 6 players, they formed Mobility X Lab, which is like a one door into to access for startups globally to access the automotive industry in Western Sweden. That's quite unique, really. So I think a lot of things are happening, both in terms of industries emerging and converging, but also in the sense how they collaborate with external players. So that's a trend, really.
That is very interesting, and I'm thinking about, because apparently there is a large amount of young citizens who choose to leave Gothenburg and Västra Götalandsregionen after they finish their studies. Why do you think they do that, and how is that affecting the outcomes of innovation and business in the region? What do you think, Björn?
Well, actually, I did very much the same thing when I graduated from Chalmers. I moved to Stockholm, started working for Ericsson, but I was homesick after a few years and managed to find where I was recruited to this small startup at Chalmers. So I think it's basically the same mechanisms that are motivating people today. I mean, it's employment basically, and to earn a living. So, and even though Gothenburg has got a lot of opportunities in some sectors, perhaps there are other areas that are more promising or more enticing. So I think it's basically a matter of being able to offer employment and housing and a good living environment, of course.
Yeah. What do you say, Elizabeth?
First of all, I didn't know that there was an escape of students from the West Swedish arena. I would have actually thought that there was just as many who moves in. So this was kind of news to me. So I don't have any answer to that one. I'm sorry.
I see. No problem. What do you say, Lars?
No, this is it's very obvious to us that this is happening, and it's we could really call it a brain drain, really, because we need especially we need engineers. There's a lack of engineers in our region. So, but I think why it is probably because, I mean, a lot of people come to Gothenburg. I think we're quite attractive. We can be even more attractive as a student city with both the universities that we do have. But I think also once you graduate, you're probably pretty mobile and probably also very open to new challenges in the capital city or overseas or something like that. No strings attached really with family ties or anything. But I think at the same time, we need to show the visibility of all the opportunities that there are here in Gothenburg. We have we cover some, 94 or 96% of all industries that are available in Sweden. So we have a very broad industry here, and there are a lot of things happening as we present. And I think perhaps some of the smaller opportunities are being put in the shadow by the large ones. And I can I can identify myself by when I graduated, I wasn't looking for going to the big companies like Volvo or Ericsson, but rather looking to smaller startup opportunities and so on. But I think we're working on that, and we do. Worth mentioning here is it's good to hear that Elizabeth wasn't fully aware of that. A third of the private R&D is spent in Western Sweden. Another thing is that we rank on the European Innovation Scoreboard. We actually rank as region number 12 in Europe, and that's although we are the second city. We're not a capital. We're not a dense. We're actually measured on behalf of both Västra Götalandsregionen and Halland, which is where the whole sort of the core, the Gothenburg region is some million inhabitants, but we are collectively ranked with the smaller municipalities in the outskirts. But still, we're on number 12 on the European scale. So, and that's not only explained by large corporations and all the R&D spending, because there's a lot of small companies as well that and opportunities. So I think we need to show that. And I think also, as Björn pointed out, perhaps simplify the housing issues. And we also, I think we can also, you need also to explore your city while you're a student. Why not explore all the possibilities to do in your spare time with the nature and the sea and everything around us?
So yes, Björn, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I said that we wouldn't complain about Stockholm, but there is an issue, of course, if you are a startup and you're looking for venture capital, it's still the case that many venture capitalists never venture outside of Stockholm area. So we're still a bit behind there.
But that, on the other hand, you just said that a third of the money is being spent here. So I'm not sure how big that problem is. And
it's not the same. It's not the same money.
No, it's not the same money. But still, if you are spending money, then you are also employing people. And I would actually like to know, because not too many of the engineers are becoming entrepreneurs and are requesting funding for that company. That is a small percentage of all the students who graduate. So I'm not sure that that is actually a reason for the brain drain that Lars was talking about. So I would like to know how many is moving out and how many is moving in. Do we have a figure of that, or is it just kind of a feeling we got?
I'm not quite sure how we measure that, and if there are sort of concrete figures to rely on. But let me come back on that, perhaps.
I'm actually interested in the answer,
yeah.
So
yeah.
That would be good to know.
Yeah.
We're sending that question with you, Lars, and hopefully
yeah,
we'll...
absolutely. I should have brought it with me, but it's from what I hear from my colleagues working with sort of the attraction of the region, also the competence needed, and so on.
That we do need to hire. We need more engineers coming here. That is for sure. But if we also have a brain drain, that is a different question. And I do think that just as yourself and as me, when I graduated from Chalmers from electrotechnology, I wanted to see the world too. So to be moving around a bit, I think that is good for most people. But the thing is, are people coming or leaving in a larger extent? That is kind of the question.
Absolutely. And I think also, as you pointed out, I mean, the international experience and knowledge is very, very good, because, I mean, people that have worked for SKF or Volvo or Ericsson, been around in the world, they can show the ropes and tricks for the young ones that are coming, that might have the bright ideas and the novel innovations that need a global market. So that's what I would like to see, sort of the shift of people in between different expertise and different fields. And I just want to point out also that we looked into the venture capital or private equity in general, and the West Sweden, we match sort of in relation to population. We have the same amount of startups and companies receiving private equity and venture capital. But like Björn pointed out, there is not as much capital managed from Western Sweden. But once again, there is also an opportunity, because I think you can see both the Volvo companies have venture branches that are feeding money into, perhaps not only locally, they are looking on a global scale, but that's a possibility if you're in that specific industry, of course.
So there are a few things that we need to do in order to maybe make Gothenburg a more attractive city to work in, connected to a lot of the different things that you were talking about. Practical reasons like housing, making sure that we understand and see all the attractive alternatives there is for people who want to work here and so on. But if we want to make Gothenburg advance in the field of innovation, what do you see as necessary things that we need to do to advance within the field of innovation? What do you say, Björn?
I think it's important to be open and inclusive. Gothenburg has got a very good reputation for a good being collaborative, which means that we work a lot together within our group. Recently, there's been also some perhaps not so positive news about us being excluding others or preferring to work within our group rather than being open to influences and partnerships outside of the group. And I think that's extremely important, not in order to become to stagnate. And I must say I don't have any personal experience of this, but it's being sort of circulated in the news and on social media and so on right now. So and of course there is some history with less tasteful things from parts of the city and other organizations that we need to sort of leave behind us, but still be open and inclusive, and not selecting our partners just on the ground of being well known and familiar.
Okay, so more openness and more inclusiveness. Do you have anything more there, Elizabeth?
No, but I think that both Björn and Lars are doing a great job in their areas to actually do work with entrepreneurs and do connect them with where the money is, so to speak. And so what I have seen from my side, both Business Region Göteborg and Chalmers Science Park are great places. I mean, we have Lindholmen Science Park as well. So I think I would say that we are set. The problem I see actually, that is the lack of people, that we are trying to hire engineers who are skilled. And right now, Volvo, SKF, Astra, everybody is working with a digitalization journey. And everybody wants to have engineers who are skilled in that area. So there is a big competition between the companies. And so also, the bottleneck, as I see it, that is the lack of engineers.
Okay. So attracting more engineers to Gothenburg.
Attracting more engineers and also attracting more students to the universities who are bringing engineers.
Yeah. What do you say, Lars?
I would like to point out another thing is that, like you're mentioning, the digitalization that's happening in almost every industry, and that's also what you can see. You need to work across borders much more now, I think, and that's also where we see a lot of innovation is happening when, for example, the automotive industry is connecting with the ICT sector, for example, and the same you can see when in life science as well, and a lot of things. We have a term, since we're working with cluster and innovation. We talk about terms like cross clustering and cross fertilization and so on, and I even hear terms of co-creation. So I think having sort of the perhaps not sort of self-evident industries getting together is sometimes you need to more or less force them together to have these clashes coming on and creating new things, because there's a lot of things I think are untapped that could be explored really.
I see. So I feel that there's a theme connected to people being open and inclusive, finding the right people for the job and putting them in the same place basically and having them work together. I have a question here connected to what we were discussing before. So you guys were saying that maybe some opportunities are not so visible for students over one. Yeah, the positions at maybe smaller companies are not so visible. So how can students look for these smaller, exciting opportunities, and what platforms are present that would help us in finding the pursuit?
Ooh, I think it's a hard one because I mean, even though we have internet and everything is visible on and searchable on the internet, it's still about sort of. I mean, I would give the advice to students to explore your networks and broaden them while you're doing your studies and so on. Take the opportunity to do internships and, if possible, do your master thesis for a corporation. Apart from doing your academic question and answering that as well. But then also I think I would say also, if I remember right from my period at my time at Chalmers, I would say that the universities tend also to address the big companies to come to their fairs when they're having like Charm at Chalmers, for example. So, but we're talking a lot about that in both the science parks and within the city, the industry development in the city to when we do projects and initiatives to lower the threshold for smaller companies to join. So I think that could be addressed from all of our parties actually. So invite the smaller companies, give them. You have something like a reversed rebate system. So have the large one pay the original price and the ordinary price, and have a rebate really for the smaller ones to lower the threshold to come and join in these initiatives and events when you present to students.
Yeah. We're actually planning activities of just this sort for this autumn, where we'll, together with the property owners, Chalmers Fastigheter and Akademiska Hus, in our area, where there are a large number of small and medium-sized enterprises located. We're hoping to be able to run a couple of events where we will mix small and medium-sized enterprises looking for perhaps adding new staff with students. So we do have a network of members, SME members of about 200 companies. So I think there is certainly a potential for making some good matching there.
Exciting.
So keep an eye on us if you're a student and looking perhaps to join a small and medium-sized company in the future.
Thank you for that tip. So if we move into a little bit bigger perspective, the COVID-19 pandemic has really affected all of our lives, but how would you say that it has affected the innovation process in society? Have you seen any negative or positive things there? Go on, Lars.
Actually some really positive examples if you look at the venture capital side of things, is that a lot of the companies have actually done online due diligence and rounds of investments in companies. So they actually managed to perform them even though not meeting the entrepreneurs in person. So that's one thing, that the activity in the venture capital field has not been diminished or anything. It has stayed the same level or even increased, I think. So that's interesting. And I think also that the recent figures we saw in how the Gothenburg region is doing overall is that we're actually closing in on reaching the normal level of development already now, 1 year into this pandemic. And but I think what we can see from both a personal and a organizational level is that we're we're lacking in this this overspill that we have on physical meetings, that we chit chat over a coffee in between in break sessions and so on, and then we find new ways of collaborating or tipping things that this guy should talk to that person, or she should connect with him because that's could be a bit a nice fit and so on. So the overspill and is lacking really, I think, but still we're managing, and I think we're doing quite well, even though we're doing this online.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you, Lars. The overspill when you meet people, that is that has totally vanished. And the thing is, if you want to be a creative entrepreneur in the digitalization, then you actually have to have one who knows the business and one who is very, very skilled within IT. For instance, if you have the customer might want to have a new way of administrate login, people who have forgotten their passwords. But if you bring in someone who is very skilled in IT, that person might say, no, you actually don't need a new administration tool. What you need is a face recognition app. And you know what? That is actually open source. And we can have it ready for you in a week, if you are willing to pay a small amount of money, of course. But and those kind of meetings where you are combining really, really skilled technicians with somebody who has a need, a problem, a customer, that is missing. On the other hand, it has been a massive digitalization journey for so many people who are now a year from the pandemic's start are using Teams more than they are using any other tool. So the digitalization journey has really boomed in that sense.
Thank you. What do you say, Björn?
Well, I mean, as a science park, meetings are our core business, and we have some really wonderful premises here at Chalmers, and it's really sad to see them being deserted like they are right now. I think we're coping, just as Lars and Elizabeth said. I mean, we're doing okay with the digital meetings, but I think in the long term, it might deplete the capacity for innovation, not having these chance encounters, not being able to perhaps think laterally or come up with ideas that are not predefined. So I'm really very, very hopeful that we will reach a situation after summer where we can start, coming back into physical meetings again. I'm really, and I think parts will remain digital, of course. I mean, that's sensible in many ways, but we need to come back to a certain level of physical meetings.
I think we're all really missing that. Making sure that we can meet is going to be a real lift, I think, for everyone. So I only have one question left for you, and that is, what is your best advice for young engineers that want to work with innovation? Do you have any tips, any do's and don'ts that you want to share with the group? Maybe you want to start, Lars?
I can do that. I think the best advice I can give you is if you have a brilliant idea or something you want to create and collaborate with others, be open about it and try it out on whatever organizations you can find in the innovation system. There are, like Björn pointed out, there are numerous up at Chalmers. There are even more if you turn to the university and out in the streets and so on. But be open about it and test it, because the initial idea is very seldom the one that you actually will launch once you're reaching that. So try it out, and if you ask one, you get one answer. If you ask two, you get two answers. If you ask 20 people about an idea, there are potential customers that would actually pick up the invoice and pay for your solution. You're probably pretty close to what 100 people would say. So ask and try again. I think that, and also if you want to build your own team, if you're entrepreneurial, if you want to do an entrepreneurial journey, I think team up with people that complement you. I mean, not 3 engineers or something like that. Or even if you're 3 engineers, I think one should be, as Elizabeth said, the tech guy. One should be really strategic, and one should be really minded. Because I mean, the least we learn from Chalmers is about selling things. So that's the key, I think.
That's a very good point. Do you have anything, Björn, to contribute with?
Well, I would say take the opportunity, grab it, and try it out. That's and otherwise you might regret it later on, not having done it, because we do have a world-class, really support system for innovation and entrepreneurship here at Chalmers. So it's really a good place to be in, and I think also the presence of large corporations such as SKF, Volvo, and so on helps this along a lot, because you can team up with them, you can get part of their experience and their muscle when it comes to marketing and so on. So yeah, give it a go.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, what do you say?
I can only agree to what the other two said. If you have a great idea, don't waste any time. Just go out and do what Lars said. Ask customers, do you want to buy this from me? And I really advise you to do it immediately after you have taken your exams, because later on in life you might have family, house, mortgages to pay, and so it's a brilliant opportunity when you are freshly out of a college or from the university. And if you instead want to work as an entrepreneur, meaning you work as an entrepreneur but inside a larger corporation, my best advice is to come up with an idea, make it as crisp as possible, and present it to somebody within that company who can actually give you some funding so that you can run with it with a larger company's muscles. So that is those two. Nobody will give you an innovation, or very few will give you an innovation. It's blood, sweat, and tears that will bring success.
So go for it, but remember that there will be blood, sweat, and tears. Maybe that is the go word today. So I think we're going to hand it back to Amanda. I would like to thank you so much, Björn, Lars, and Elizabeth, for all your thoughts. It's really valuable and fun to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks for having us.